Hello, brothers, and welcome to Sigma Old Man Channel. Never interfere with an enemy in the process of destroying themselves. Napoleon Bonaparte. There's a certain kind of poetic justice in watching someone dig their own grave while you sip your coffee, unbothered. And if there's anyone who has mastered this art, it's the Sigma. They don't do petty, they don't do drama, they don't waste energy fighting battles that don't deserve their attention. Instead, they dismantle their enemies without lifting a finger, turning them into their own worst enemy. Here's a fact: 90% of conflicts are won not through aggression, but through psychological dominance. And Sigmas, they don't just understand this, they weaponize it. While their enemies scream, plot, and overextend themselves, the Sigma remains calm, collected, and 5 steps ahead. The result? Their enemies don't just lose, they embarrass themselves in ways they never saw coming. This isn't about revenge. It's about playing the game so effortlessly that by the time an enemy realizes they were even in a battle, they've already lost. Want to know how they do it? Stay tuned, because these 10 genius moves will make you rethink everything you thought you knew about putting enemies in their place. Number 1, they make enemies feel like they've lost before they even begin. Before an enemy even makes their first move, a Sigma has already won, not because they fight dirty or launch a preemptive strike, but because their entire presence radiates an energy that screams, "You can't touch me." It's the way they carry themselves, calm, composed, and completely unaffected. It's how they speak, with a precision that makes people second-guess their own intelligence. It's how they respond to challenges, not with anger or desperation, but with an unsettling level of confidence that makes their enemies feel like they've already lost before the battle even starts. A Sigma doesn't waste time proving themselves. They don't argue, don't engage in pointless back and forths, and certainly don't entertain the idea that their enemies are even worth their energy. This alone is enough to make an enemy's confidence start to crumble. When someone expects resistance but is met with indifference, when they expect a fight but get silence, the doubt begins to creep in. Why aren't they reacting? Do they know something I don't? Am I about to embarrass myself? And just like that, they've already lost half the battle in their own head. The real kicker? Sigmas don't need to threaten anyone. They don't have to intimidate with words or flex their power. Their presence alone creates an atmosphere of inevitability, an unspoken truth that says, no matter what you do, you will not win against me. Their enemies feel it before they even take the first step. The weight of uncertainty, the realization that they might be outmatched, and the creeping sense that this won't end well for them. And when the mind is conquered, the body follows. A Sigma doesn't just win, they make their enemies defeat themselves before the fight even begins. Number 2, they win without ever having to fight. A Sigma understands one fundamental truth: the loudest person in the room is usually the weakest. True power isn't about confrontation, it's about control. And nothing exerts more control than refusing to engage. While most people get caught up in petty battles, feeling the need to defend their name, prove a point, or seek revenge, a Sigma moves differently. They don't fight because they don't have to. They know that silence, success, and indifference do more damage than any argument ever could. Walking away isn't weakness. It's a strategic power move. When an enemy throws shade, spreads rumors, or tries to provoke a reaction, they expect retaliation. They expect a fight, they crave attention, but when a Sigma refuses to play the game, it sends a brutal message: you are not important enough to be acknowledged. That alone is enough to drive an enemy insane. They want to matter, but to a Sigma, they are nothing more than background noise. What makes it even worse? Life has a way of humbling people who move with bad intentions. While the Sigma stays focused on their own path, their enemy inevitably self-destructs. They waste energy trying to tear someone down who isn't even looking their way. They expose their own bitterness, desperation, and insecurities for the world to see, without the Sigma having to lift a single finger. And when the dust settles, the Sigma is exactly where they've always been, unbothered, ahead, and untouchable. Winning without fighting isn't just a tactic, it's a way of life. Number 3, they force their enemies to play a game they can't win. A Sigma never fights on their enemy's terms. They don't engage in public drama, childish arguments, or obvious retaliation. That would give their enemies a fair shot, and Sigmas don't do fair when it comes to dealing with threats. Instead, they shift the battlefield into a space where they hold all the power: psychological warfare. This isn't about manipulation, it's about strategy. A Sigma understands that most people are driven by ego, emotion, and the need for validation. So instead of responding to attacks, they let their enemies collapse under the weight of their own insecurities. They create uncertainty. A well-placed silence, an unread message, or a simple look can send an enemy spiraling into overthinking. Why aren't they reacting? Did I mess up? Are they planning something? The paranoia begins to eat away at them. They start making reckless moves, trying harder and harder to get a reaction. But the Sigma gives them nothing. The enemy burns themselves out, exposing their desperation to everyone around them. And once someone starts looking desperate, they've already lost. Then comes the final blow, letting the enemy humiliate themselves. By staying calm and composed, the Sigma naturally makes their enemy look foolish. While the enemy rants, argues, or spreads lies, the Sigma remains silent, watching as the person self-destructs in public view. It's checkmate without even making a move. The beauty of this approach? The Sigma never has to get their hands dirty. Their enemy does all the damage for them, unraveling piece by piece, while the Sigma stands untouched, undefeated, and unbothered. Number 4, they leave enemies confused by never reacting the way they expect. An enemy thrives on predictability. They expect anger when they provoke, defensiveness when they attack, and fear when they apply pressure. But a Sigma, they are the ultimate disruptors. Nothing about their response ever fits the script. And that alone is enough to throw an enemy into complete confusion. Instead of rage, they respond with eerie calm. Instead of arguing, they go silent. Instead of breaking, they smirk, like they're in on a joke no one else understands. And that's exactly what drives their enemies insane. The moment someone can't predict your reactions, they lose control. A Sigma understands this better than anyone. They don't give enemies the satisfaction of a predictable emotional response. They don't panic when attacked, nor do they rush to explain themselves when misunderstood. Instead, they take their time, making the enemy second-guess every move. Did I just make a mistake? Are they planning something? Why aren't they reacting? This psychological pressure is more powerful than any direct confrontation. Even better, Sigmas have a way of making their enemies look ridiculous in the process. While the enemy spirals into frustration, desperately trying new tactics, the Sigma remains unfazed, sometimes even entertained. That's the final blow. Nothing is more humiliating than realizing the person you're trying to destroy doesn't even see you as a real threat. And once an enemy starts to doubt themselves, the game is over. They lose not because the Sigma fought back, but because they lost control of their own mind. Number 5, they make winning look effortless. A Sigma never needs to flex, brag, or prove a point. Their success speaks for itself. While others waste time talking about their next big move, a Sigma is already 10 steps ahead, executing in silence. This is what makes them so frustrating to their enemies. There's no warning, no build-up, no hint of what's coming. One day an enemy thinks they have the upper hand. The next, they're left wondering how the Sigma managed to pull off something so effortlessly while they were too busy scheming. The beauty of a Sigma's approach is that they never engage in the competition their enemies are desperate for. There's no need to throw shade, no need for petty back and forths. They just do what they do best: win quietly, move with precision, and let life handle the rest. And when an enemy finally notices, it's too late. The Sigma has already secured their victory without breaking a sweat. What makes it even worse? A Sigma doesn't seek validation. They don't announce their wins because they don't need an audience. Their only focus is elevation. Meanwhile, their enemies, who thrive on external recognition, are left fuming, watching in disbelief as the Sigma continues to rise without even acknowledging them. That's the ultimate humiliation. Realizing you wasted all your energy trying to bring someone down, only for them to win so effortlessly that you were never even a factor in their journey. Number 6, they turn their enemies into their own worst enemy. A Sigma doesn't need to throw punches when their enemy is already swinging at shadows. They know that most people are their own worst enemy, full of insecurities, ego, and the constant need to prove themselves. Instead of engaging in pointless battles, a Sigma simply holds up a mirror and lets their enemy destroy themselves. It's not magic, it's strategy. They subtly highlight flaws without ever directly attacking, plant just enough doubt to make their enemies second-guess everything, and then sit back while paranoia does the rest. The best part? The enemy never even realizes what's happening until it's too late. They start making reckless decisions, overreacting to situations, and trying too hard to prove a point that no one is even arguing against. While they spiral, the Sigma remains untouched, watching, waiting, and knowing exactly how this story ends. And the ending? The enemy embarrasses themselves in public view, burns bridges, and ultimately defeats themselves, all while thinking they were the ones in control. A Sigma never gets their hands dirty. They don't have to. They understand that true power isn't about direct confrontation. It's about making people unravel on their own. By the time their enemy realizes they've been outplayed, they're already in ruins, wondering how they lost a fight the Sigma never even agreed to. Number 7. They make enemies feel unworthy of a response. For a Sigma, responding to someone beneath them is a waste of energy. Instead of engaging in petty arguments or defending themselves, they use silence as their weapon of choice. The mere act of not reacting sends a crystal clear message: you're not worth my time. It's a power play that cuts deeper than any insult could. The enemy is left grasping at air, desperate for a reaction that never comes. In the world of Sigmas, not every battle is worth fighting, and some people simply aren't worth acknowledging. When they refuse to engage, it's not because they fear confrontation. It's because they know the enemy's words have no power over them. The more the enemy tries to provoke, the more they expose their desperation, revealing their need for attention. But the Sigma's silence is a mirror. They don't need validation, and they certainly don't need to explain themselves. The enemy isn't worth it. This tactic is far more devastating than any verbal exchange. The enemy, frustrated and confused, is left with nothing but the crushing reality that their existence doesn't even register on the Sigma's radar. It's the ultimate insult without a single word being spoken. In the end, the enemy doesn't just lose, they realize they were never even a contender. And that realization, it stings far more than any insult ever could. Number 8, they turn enemies' insults into compliments. A Sigma doesn't just shrug off insults, they absorb them, flip them, and wear them like a badge of honor. When someone tries to criticize them, they don't get offended, they get confirmation. Too independent? That's the goal. Too different? That's the advantage. Too focused? That's why they win. Every insult thrown at them is just another reminder that they're doing something right, and that realization alone drives their enemies insane. Most people rely on insults to get a reaction, to shake someone's confidence or to bring them down a notch. But when a Sigma treats every criticism as a compliment, the enemy is left completely powerless. It's like trying to punch a shadow. No matter how hard they swing, nothing lands. They expect insecurity, defensiveness, or anger, but all they get is an unbothered smirk and a response that makes them question their entire strategy. Even worse, the more an enemy tries to insult a Sigma, the more they expose their own frustration. At some point, it stops being about the Sigma and starts looking like an obsession. They thought they were attacking, but in reality, they just gave the Sigma another reason to keep winning. And nothing is more humiliating than realizing you've done nothing but fuel the very person you were trying to tear down. Number 9, they master the art of psychological checkmate. A Sigma never fights messy. They don't waste energy on impulsive reactions or meaningless back and forths. Instead, they operate like a grandmaster in chess, studying their enemy's every move, waiting patiently, and then delivering a psychological checkmate so precise, so undeniable, that the enemy doesn't even realize they've lost until it's too late. They understand that most people are ruled by emotion, ego, and the desperate need to win in the moment. Sigmas, they don't care about quick victories. They care about total, undeniable dominance. That's why they never react emotionally. An insult doesn't faze them. A cheap shot doesn't shake them. They sit back, watch, and let their enemy reveal every weakness, every insecurity, every blind spot. And when the time is right, they make a single, effortless move that completely unravels their opponent. It could be a well-placed silence that makes the enemy question everything. It could be an unshaken demeanor that exposes how weak and desperate the other person looks, or it could be a single, calculated action, one undeniable move that ends the entire game. And the best part? The Sigma never has to gloat, never has to explain, never has to seek validation. The enemy is left sitting in their own defeat, trying to figure out how they lost a battle they thought they were winning. But that's the power of psychological checkmate. It's clean, it's final, and it leaves no room for a comeback. Number 10, they let their enemies burn out. For a Sigma, responding to someone beneath them is a waste of energy. Instead of engaging in petty arguments or defending themselves, they use silence as their weapon of choice. The mere act of not reacting sends a crystal clear message: you're not worth my time. It's a power play that cuts deeper than any insult could. The enemy is left grasping at air, desperate for a reaction that never comes. In the world of Sigmas, not every battle is worth fighting, and some people simply aren't worth acknowledging. When they refuse to engage, it's not because they fear confrontation, it's because they know the enemy's words have no power over them. The more the enemy tries to provoke, the more they expose their desperation, revealing their need for attention. But the Sigma's silence is a mirror. They don't need validation, and they certainly don't need to explain themselves. The enemy isn't worth it. This tactic is far more devastating than any verbal exchange. The enemy, frustrated and confused, is left with nothing but the crushing reality that their existence doesn't even register on the Sigma's radar. It's the ultimate insult without a single word being spoken. In the end, the enemy doesn't just lose. They realize they were never even a contender. And that realization, it stings far more than any insult ever could. In the end, Sigmas don't just win. They redefine what victory looks like. They don't need noise, confrontation, or validation to prove their worth. Their power lies in silence, in subtlety, in the unspoken mastery of control. While others waste energy on petty struggles and emotional outbursts, the Sigma remains poised, unaffected, and always several steps ahead. Their enemies, they fall apart, driven by their own insecurities, self-doubt, and the desperate need for a reaction that never comes. And in the grand scheme, that is the ultimate form of dominance, making the world watch as they succeed without even breaking a sweat. So the next time you're faced with an enemy, remember this: you don't have to engage, you don't have to fight. Sometimes all you need to do is stand still, remain calm, and let them burn themselves out in their own foolishness. The greatest victories are the ones you never have to fight for, and Sigmas know that better than anyone. If you're vibing with this unfiltered wisdom and ready to embrace the power of the Sigma mindset, don't just stand on the sidelines. Subscribe to the channel. Join the tribe, stay tuned, and let's keep leveling up together. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Let's get it. Bye for now, and see you in the next video.